And we're back at it again with another live one for all you Bi-Conics YouTube fanatics out there. And welcome to another exciting edition of the Friday Night Faction Review for WWE Smackdown. I am one of your hosts, Mikey, and joined with me once again this week, coming back for another round of an interesting Smackdown, which we'll talk about later, is the one and only Luis, my friend. You are back, and I am so happy to have you. How are we doing?
Oh, we're good, man. We're good. I'm excited to talk about this. I dressed for the occasion. I definitely was ready to go. My childhood came out last night. I immediately thought of my father and immediately got super excited and had to have people at my job tell me to calm down.
I feel like that's the sign of making it as a wrestling fan when other people tell you, are you okay? And or
Yep,
you need to calm down.
100%.
Oh my goodness. So, okay. So this SmackDown was interesting in the sense that for the most part, I pretty much enjoyed a lot of
hmm
this, which is more than I can usually say.
hmm
But I do still have some questions, especially the way that we ended SmackDown. And we'll talk about it when we get there. But I have a lot of questions, and I'm just interested to see what happens. And then me and you talked a little bit before off camera, and it feels like there's a couple of things that got changed last minute.
Yeah.
Like for me, I was like, okay, why is LA and Miz fighting again? Because I thought that died because I was like, okay, we're gonna get a trilogy, and then Miz started going after Cena on Raw. I was like, okay, never mind. And then these two are fighting again. I'm like, so are we back on? Like, what's happening?
Yeah. I thought it was strange. I didn't realize that I thought we were going into SmackDown with The Miz versus Austin Theory. For
That's
some
what I
reason, we
thought.
got LA Knight versus. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm mistaken. I thought they advertised Miz versus LA Knight, and we got Austin Theory versus LA Knight, and I was like genuinely confused. I was like, why is he wrestling Theory? I thought we were supposed to we were supposed to end the thing with the Miz. Like the Miz talks about it on Monday. Like I'm sure you talked about it on the Raw review. He says like I'll be at SmackDown, and he goes into all of this stuff, and it's like I understand that things needed to get cut. Obviously, Rocky probably called Trips and was like, how would you feel if I rolled through? And he was like, yeah, roll through. We'll fix whatever. Like, get you on. That's amazing. We already got Cena here, and it worked out. Obviously, I'll talk about the numbers here in like a couple minutes when we get into the opening of the show. But it was clear with LA Knight's promo that the intention was to let the world know what his like what he's doing. So why not have him continue like squash the thing with the Miz and then start fresh on Monday night? I don't understand that. I don't think his segment needed to cut. If anything, the LWO segment could have been cut.
Unfortunately, because they did my during Latino Heritage Month too. I'm like, it's a
Oh.
crime.
Well,
We'll
I
talk.
mean, Bobby Lashley's Latino too, so we're not
Yeah,
gonna. Yeah.
it- I I I don't say this lightly. Watching that happen, I was like, this is a hate crime, and I'm upset. It's like, how dare you? So,
Yeah.
but our glasses are now on. Let's get this show on
Let's
the
do
road.
it.
So, okay, I'm gonna come out with a hot take right out the way. So we opened the show with Pat McAfee coming in and cutting a
Let's
welcome
go.
a welcome promo. This is a hot take because some of the other boys, as well as the majority of the IWC, the Internet Wrestling community, don't like Pat McAfee. I do. I think he's great. I
Yeah.
love the fact that during the whole era, he broke the fourth wall and he said whatever he felt in the moment.
He did during this promo too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Listen, Pat McAfee, I miss him on commentary too. I
Yep.
really, really do. Him and Michael Cole had something special, and
Him and Corey Graves had something special. The
that too.
hatred
Oh,
between the two was perfect.
it was a nice balance. It wasn't overbearing. I love it. But Pat cuts a promo, welcomes to the city, basically recaps that clip that we got earlier in the day when he was covering the college football game when The Rock appeared.
Yep.
And so from there, Austin Theory comes down. I don't want to hate Austin Theory. I don't hate the person. It's just that his character is horrible, and I Yeah, this.
I would typically agree with you, but the version of the character we got in the ring with Pat McAfee, if that's the way they portray him, that guy will get over. The way he cut his promo, like you could tell dog is a part of his like vocabulary. Like the
Hmm.
way he cut it, like sometimes you could feel like it's forced, like, a white dude will be like, "Hey, what's up, dog?" And it's like, no, it's not a part of your vocabulary. You know what I mean? It's like we can't all just start saying yes, boy. Like it's not a part of our vocabulary, right? But for some reason, it felt like that's him. That's who he is. And if they let him be authentic and they let him be that guy, like I don't know if you've ever watched that special with him where there was like they took like cameras into his house and he showed you his like horror movie memorabilia and stuff. Like he's super genuine. He seems like a really nice guy. And it's like, all right, why are you trying to shift him into something we don't enjoy? I
Right.
really think that would be the version of the character that gets over. I'm wondering if they're halting him like they did Roman for 8 years.
Well, you know what? That would be very interesting to hear. And I agree with you. If this version of Austin Theory is what we get from now on, I'm okay with it because everything that we've had before wasn't necessarily great. I love Pat McAfee going back and forth with him. Pat, I still think, even though he's not a full time talent, his back and forth with wrestlers is one of my favorite things to see because he can hold his own in these types
Absolutely.
of things. And then, of course, he rips Austin Theory a new one, telling him that this is not your show, it's the people's show. And it's like, I find offense with it, and that's a problem, and you want to know why. And then cue, if you smell it.
Yep.
I was like, damn. I was like, the reports were true.
I just wanna say this on here. I want to be very clear for the listeners and the watchers. Earlier in the day, The Rock cut or talked to Pat McAfee and explained what was supposed to happen at 39. And the immediate reaction on the internet was to cry about it. Cody's not going to finish a story. That guy JD from New York that's just super toxic to the wrestling fan base. He jumps on and he's like, "Oh, at this point Cody will never finish a story. What a ruined segment." M- People, put your TV on 20 and tell me that you don't feel like it's on 60 because that crowd was rocking. As I said I was going to bring up the numbers, 1.8 million views for this segment in 7 hours. That's how many people are excited that The Rock is back. So I think obviously we're jumping back to theory since that's like that's a part of the segment too. It's clear that the plans are for Theory to be a next top guy because he has been positioned in a great spot to work legend after legend after legend. He's not just a rando guy who goes out there like I mean, from Austin, from taking a stunner to John Cena to The Rock. Like he's Vince McMahon. He's absolutely been positioned to be like one of the top guys of the future.
I listen. I love The Rock, both in
Mhm.
ring and out ring. And again, I was I was rewatching it on my iPad this morning, and then I had to turn it down because I was afraid my speakers were going to get blasted out from the audience screaming and cheering.
Yup.
This to me was a perfect segment, and it was also given the perfect length because it wasn't too long, which I
Yep.
appreciated. So basically, The Rock has returned to SmackDown in Denver, Colorado. He goes back and forth with Austin Theory. I did love that Austin Theory cut him off. It's like, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
I was like, oh,
That
Austin,
that
you're about to get
that's
your
a
ass
rub
kicked.
right there. You
I was
you know that's a rub for The Rock to let a guy, a 26-year-old kid, do something like that. That is a massive indication as to what Austin Theory is. That's not something that the last person that did that to him was Mick Foley.
mm-hmm.
That I mean, think about that. The only person that's used the "it doesn't matter" on The Rock is Mick Foley.
Yep.
That's a big deal, people. You cannot read into it if you don't want to, but no, I'm sorry. That's a big deal.
It was awesome. And as soon as Austin said that, I immediately went, oh, he's going to get his ass kicked, and I'm here for it. And then
Yeah.
essentially, that's what happens. He gets a rock bottom, and then the people's elbow to make the crowd even love this segment more.
Mhm.
Also, in the background, I also love Pat McAfee's facial expressions. Just
Yes.
he's just
I
like,
thought the
ooh.
same thing. Tell me you wouldn't have been. I thought that. I was like, there's a great promo in professional wrestling. Not to veer off topic, I'm sorry, but there's a great promo in professional wrestling where it's Chris Jericho in the ring during Piper's Pit, and
Mm-hmm.
Roddy Piper's cutting a promo on him, talking about like old school wrestling, and you can clearly see in this promo Chris Jericho forgot he was working. He was a fan. And that's what I feel like Pat McAfee was last night. He was, I mean, he was pumped. He was excited. I was thinking to myself, like, I would be this. I'm in the ring as The Rock's about to do the people's elbow.
I'm
You got to be
literally
kidding me.
5 feet away from
Yes.
this in front of me. And who wouldn't? And I agree with you. If I were in Pat McAfee's position, I would literally have a fanboy moment and just the facial expressions was like,
Yep.
I don't care if I was told I need to keep it common to me. No, it's The Rock doing the people's elbow and the rock bottom to
Yeah.
a very hot crowd to start off the show. I'm going to be a fan in this moment.
Absolutely. I mean, to me personally, The Rock is everything. He means like sitting down watching wrestling with my father. When I moved to Union City, New Jersey from Puerto Rico in 1997, I had my wrestlers, my people that I loved. I loved Bret Hart, I loved Sting. Those were my guys. Those were my like top two guys. And I came to the United States and my dad was like with his Jersey Rican accent, he's like, "Louis, you got to watch this guy. You got to watch this guy." And he was really big about like body back then. He was a big like Vince guy, like a body guy. He's got you got to see his thighs, man. They're huge. They're huge. And I was thinking like, all right. And then I was introduced to Jerry Curl, Rocky Maivia, and I remember watching it and like essentially growing with The Rock. So he was one of my guys. I remember being a kid crying when he didn't win the title in that Iron Man match against Triple H because of the Undertaker. You know what? That's probably why I hate the Undertaker. That's probably why. And yeah, and I just it was such a big deal. So I remember when like watching it, I was just thinking to myself, I was like, I feel like my dad would be jumping right now. He would be super pumped, you know. It was a great moment for wrestling fans, young or old. I feel like he's generational. It doesn't matter. And he looks great. I gotta say, I also love the subtle dig because Austin Theory says like you in that tank top looks like whatever he said, and he's like, I look like a Greek god, and then The Rock like stops his promo to show like, well, you may look like that in your tank top, but hold my beer. I was just like, you could tell it bothered Austin Theory that he took off his jacket.
Yes, listen, The Rock at this age still has the goods. Also, I love the crowd participation in calling Austin Theory an asshole, which was hilarious.
Absolutely.
I was
Yep.
like, this is how you get the crowd to interact without them taking control and over the show in ways that they're not supposed to.
I don't think there's a soul on this planet that could work the crowd like that.
Mm-mm.
He's been out of the business like full time since what 2003, since that SummerSlam
Mm-hmm.
with Brock Lesnar, and it's 20 years later, and he still got half the arena to chant "You are," half the arena to chant "asshole," and it was just like, how is that possible?
Again, when we talk about legends in WWE, of course, we always have to mention like the ones that came, the Dusty Rhodes, the Rowdy Pipers, all
Yep.
this. But I feel that there will never be a duo of super, like for me, a trifecta of legends that always get a pop no matter where they go. And that is always Stone Cold.
Hmm.
Well, I'll put Mick Foley in this. So like a square, if you will. Mick Foley,
Yeah.
Stone Cold, um, The Rock, and Kurt Angle. Like those are my four that no matter where they go, they always get a pop. And of course,
Yep.
The Rock has transcended from being a wrestling Greek god to just a bona fide superstar, both in and out of the ring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. If Hollywood doesn't want him, then screw you guys. Give him back to us because we'll gladly put the title on him. I don't care. Let him beat Roman. If The Rock is our champion, I'm good with that. I'll travel across the United States to watch him. Whatever.
Me and you may have to figure it out. I wouldn't go that far quite yet, but but honestly though, if even if it's for like a couple months, then I'm cool with it.
Hmm.
I think I'll be more open to it than I was when he held the title during his program with Cena because the circumstances were a little different, and I wasn't a big fan of that feud. I was like, really? But I feel like this time around, I think I'd be more open to it.
Hmm.
But this was a great opening segment. And I sat here, I was like, wow, this is going to be great. And then I look at my clock, I'm like, oh my gosh, we still have about an hour and 45 minutes left of the show. What? How do you continue that momentum? Was my biggest question.
I don't think they did a good job after that. There's not a lot of momentum shifting at the end. Like I think the crowd was definitely into the rest of the night, but you could tell like that.
It's hard to follow up The Rock in any
Yeah,
capacity.
after watching the Grayson Waller effect, I thought to myself, the Rock segment should have closed the show. That was definitely one of those weird things. You talk about it all the time on our pay-per-view recaps, like the way Tony Khan puts women in the worst positions. I feel like Triple H put the whole roster in a bad position last night.
Which also leads to what we talked about at the beginning. It felt like a lot of things got shifted around or changed. And I don't think The Rock being there with Pat was planned at all whatsoever.
Hmm.
And again, nothing was inherently wrong because I do think that some of the talent realized it's like, okay, The Rock is here. So we need to figure out a way to step up what we were scheduled to do and try to do our best. And I feel that some of these matches ended up doing that, but
Hmm.
others they tried, but didn't necessarily go the way that it was supposed to.
Before we jump into the first match, I'd like to give a shout out to a TikTok person who got actually like famous yesterday, even more famous than she is on SmackDown. Did you catch the sign behind Pat McAfee yesterday?
Oh my listen,
Did
this
you did you see it?
yes. I was like, wow. I was like, oh my
That apparently that father and son are really, so what we're talking about is we're talking about Wheezy. She's on TikTok. She's a pretty big person, and over the past couple months, she's decided to get a Twitch and do like live reactions, like
hmm
watch live and stuff. But she apparently this father and son reached out to her through direct messaging and asked if they can use her logo as a way, like for her. They apparently really enjoy her content, and they did it. Now she did say later on TikTok that WWE confiscated the sign,
Boo.
but we still got a Wheezy Blonde sign in the background for Pat McAfee's segment. And I was like, dude, not only did she get that, but she's always going to have her sign in the back with the Rock in the ring. That is something that nobody will ever be able to say.
Honestly, it was so great. It, I love these kinds of things. I love hearing these types of stories because it reminds me that the internet wrestling community does have a heart when it wants to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love it too because she gets a lot of flack from idiots on social media that always attack her with the same lazy response. Oh, you don't know nothing about wrestling because you're a woman. And I try to remind people of this. Like, I live here in Pennsylvania. There is a football team that's 2.5 hours away from my house called the Pittsburgh Steelers. That is the biggest female fan base in the NFL. If you go to a Steeler game, and I've been to many, if you go to a Steeler game, that place is mostly women. They love their football team. So why can't a woman be a wrestling fan like this? I mean, all the women in my life have been wrestling fans. So I really don't understand it.
I'll save this for off camera. I'll talk because I have a special relationship with wrestling with a certain woman in my life. My grandmother became one of my best friends in terms of my wrestling partner in crime when she was alive, and I'll tell you that story off camera. But yeah, it boggles my mind that you know people who want to review wrestling or women who watch it, review it, interviews like And just like the women's wrestlers, man, I don't understand why it shouldn't be this difficult.
No,
It shouldn't.
absolutely not. I agree with you. But yeah, so I guess now we start the SmackDown show because The Rock took the cake.
He literally took the cake. He took the ball. He did a couple of 3-pointers, took it to the back with him, and then everybody else had to figure out what they were going to do, which kind of basically sums up how I felt about the first official match we got. So,
Hmm.
again, I have to remind myself that Judgment Day can be on both shows because they're the undisputed tag team championships. God, I hope we get new titles soon and figure out that whole situation.
All reports are saying they're separating the titles here soon.
I hope so, because I mean, don't get me wrong. I think defending the tag titles would be a fun idea on Raw and SmackDown, but right now they're just sitting on Judgment Day, really. And we haven't figured out when they're actually going to defend those things, but that's neither here nor there. So our first official match was Finn Balor versus AJ Styles, and on paper, this should have been awesome. It was
Hmm.
not. It was
No.
it was way too short for me. I was like, this is what we're getting. Okay, sure,
Hmm.
whatever. Because honestly, this match only served the purpose to set up what we would get in our main event segment down the line the
Hmm.
show. Because Jimmy cost AJ the match, which allowed Finn to pick up the win here. And I'm like,
With the crucifix.
yes, okay, that part I did enjoy. I was just like,
Yeah.
yes. But I was bummed. I wanted more time because on paper this should have been awesome. But it only
Yeah, honestly, this didn't progress any stories to me. Like, I know you mentioned a main event, but I really felt like this was the quickest. Like, it was a blink. You blinked and you could miss it. Like, I remember, like, I was watching it on break yesterday, when I was on my break, and I remember thinking, like, I was really fast. Like, I didn't expect that to go as quickly as it did because I was really excited because these guys have had some, like, really good matches together. And if I guess if I'm speaking correctly, I'm pretty sure Finn Balor's undefeated against AJ Styles in the WWE.
yep. I was reminded by that fact by a friend of mine. I was like, "Oh my goodness, you're absolutely right."
I love that. I think that's such a great story when we have a person that you can't beat. That's why I'm excited for when Drew McIntyre finally gets his win on Roman because it's going to be monumental because that's going to be a part of the story.
Seriously. And Drew, I laugh at this because over on Monday Night Raw, Drew's about to run through the New Day, and I'm kind of here for it. And I love the New Day. Don't get me wrong. I love Kofi. I love Xavier. I think they're awesome wrestlers and awesome people. But just from the entertainment purposes, eventually Drew running through both of them is going to be fantastic. And I love it
Absolutely.
so much.
I'm a big Drew McIntyre believer, big fan. I'm hoping he runs through them, runs through Matt Riddle, and then runs through Cody.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want. Cody needs to lose a feud. He can't go into WrestleMania that strong. I don't think it'll sell well. But if he loses to Drew, I think that'll be a big deal. But yeah, I mean, after this, don't we like jump into another Rock and Pat McAfee segment?
Literally. So we head backstage. So Rock and Pat are chatting it up. Pat goes and leaves. Rock turns around, and then it's the man you apparently can't see some of the time. John Cena's
Hmm.
there. And I love that The Rock called it out. It's like, you're smiling. And John's just like,
Yep.
it's so good. And they hug.
Yeah.
Listen,
Good bro hug.
listen, I may not have liked the fact that they fought over the title when they were feuding, but Cena and Rock feuding was still really fantastic. And that whole entire program that they had, a couple years ago, I still really enjoyed it, even though I didn't agree that it was for the title, but it is what it is. These two have amazing chemistry. These two are probably the biggest stars that you currently have that are still kind of here and there. Maybe not full timers, but nobody, and I say, and I want to punctuate, nobody can tell me any different that these two are not stars.
Oh, absolutely. It was a massive spot. I really enjoyed it. I love the fact that like Rocky gets like his he gets that little dig in there that he caught him smiling. I really liked it. I mean, it was a quick segment. I think I tried to clock it. I think it was like a 90-second spot, so it wasn't a ton of time.
It's perfect.
But 90 seconds on a 2-hour show is still a lot.
Yes, which is perfect length. We've had way too many long promos this week between the rest of the reviews, and you can check those out to hear our reviews. But Promo Fest Part 3 on Dynamite. There was a 25-minute opening segment in Impact Wrestling promo, but it was 1,000 episodes, so all the women came out, and it was a women's promo.
Yeah, that was completely
So
different.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
complain about that one, but
Yeah.
I'm glad this was 90 seconds. It didn't need to be any longer. And then we jump into another backstage segment where Jimmy out here thinking he running SmackDown. Jimmy thinking he runs SmackDown is the funniest thing that I can think of right now.
I love it, and I love the dissension that Finn Balor adds to the
Right.
bloodline. It really feels like the bloodline, like the Judgment Day are trying to kill the bloodline.
Seriously, so if you don't know what we're talking about, so on Monday Night Raw, Finn is tried to recruit Jay, and Jay just didn't say anything. And honestly, I don't think Jay would accept it anyways, because we're pushing him to be, I don't need nobody, bro. I'm main event Jay Uso. Like, I got this. Jimmy, on the other hand, is more susceptible to planting those seeds of dissension. So Finn goes up to Jimmy. He talks about, hey, you have an invitation to join Judgment Day. I talked to your brother. He didn't say no, but I think you would also be good to add. And Jimmy was more receptive to this than Jay was on Monday. So I love the fact that Judgment Day is playing mind games with the Usos. And then
Love it.
also Solo Sikoa, we'll see later, is running rampant and, going rogue. Because
or is he? Because I have a great theory about that when we get there.
I can't wait to hear that one. But Jimmy's just like, yeah, you know what? I'll think about it. And, shakes Finn Balor's hand. And I was like, oh, Finn, you sly little sneak, you.
Well, I think it was a great indicator. And what I loved is that we didn't just get a fluff segment. He makes sure to point out that in the Judgment Day, there are no leaders. It's just a bunch of people that want to run WWE. And they all have the same mindset. And in the bloodline, they all have to follow the tribal chief.
Exactly.
And he even mentions Roman's name, which is super interesting that Roman's been talked about a lot lately. So I guess we're going to see what happens here. But I just thought, like, what I didn't like, if I could just say, because I know we're going to go into the LWO thing next. What I didn't like is we go backstage, Pat McAfee and The Rock, Jimmy and Finn Balor, to Jimmy and Paul Heyman, to an LWO promo. Like, that's how the next part of the show is.
That was weird the way that they set all these up. So it was interesting. So, like you said, Jimmy to Finn, and then Jimmy to Paul, and then So, this point of the show, I will be the first to admit, this was probably the low point. This in-ring promo and the match we got after that.
Agreed.
Not because I think anybody in this is inherently wrong. I love everybody involved. I'm just upset that this was a hate crime, and I'm going to stand by that. This was a hate crime. This was Latino on Latino violence, and I did not appreciate it.
Yep.
So
it was very interesting.
Oh, again, LWO comes out in the ring. Zelina Vega, always the cosplay queen. You are forever my favorite. I don't care what nobody says. Keep doing you.
Yes. 100%.
So they cut a promo. Ray does most of the speaking here, but ultimately we get a small back and forth between Ray and Santos, which essentially the big takeaway is that this is going to set up Ray versus Santos for that United States Championship at some point. Will it be on? It could be on television. I would love for it to be. It
could be at Fastlane.
I would love for it to be at Fastlane, but we'll see. Then this got cut short because Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits come out. Montez Ford, your gear is phenomenal, and both you and Angelo, it's really hard to pull off mint as a color, but it looks great on you guys. Just to put it out there. So this one felt weird because I feel like Bobby and the Street Profits had more to say, but then you had, Cruz and just that little tag team. Like, I feel like they cut it way too short. I think they jumped in at the wrong time. Because
Yeah.
then, like, as they said it, and they said, we'll fight anybody here and now, so let's do this. Bobby was trying to talk on the mic, and then he kind of just put it down when he realized that the mic got cut off. I was like, oops.
Yeah. Bobby's not the best talker, but this was an interesting segment to me. I mean, obviously it leads to a match. It just kind of felt,
Was it a match, though?
yeah, that's true. It was just a way for the Street Profits to continue to use their cool finish. But I don't know. I don't understand. I've been on this train for a long time. It's okay to bring back legacy groups like DX, NWO, do whatever. But LWO mattered in WCW. It was a big deal. It had a big storyline. You could say whatever you want. It wasn't the Radicals, guys. It wasn't that. Like this was it wasn't what was the Filthy Animals, I think, with like Tori Wilson,
I
Conan.
think so, yeah.
uh yeah, yeah. It wasn't that. Like the LWO mattered, and to bring it back, to have them lose as often as they do, even if you throw a title in there, it doesn't matter.
Well,
Like that doesn't matter. Honky Tonk Man lost all the time. He never lost Intercontinental Championship matches. It doesn't matter if you have a title.
and let's break it down then. So there are 5 members of LWO. You have Ray Santos, you have, you know,
Cruz and Joaquin.
Cruz and Joaquin, and Zelina Vega. So Ray and Santos have the better win record in terms of certain things. I would say, even though Zelina loses a lot, she also wins a lot too.
Yeah.
Like, she has a better
Yep.
record. The outliers is Joaquin and Cruz, because they rarely get to wrestle. And when they do,
Hmm.
they always find themselves losing all the time
Hmm.
and getting squashed. And again, I hate that we're doing this during Latino Heritage Month.
Yeah. It is definitely eye opening, but yeah, I really feel like LWO was brought in so their name was bigger, but so that way when you beat them, it matters more. The only issue is you have to start them off strong, so when they start losing, it's like, wow, like the LWO lost last night. You know what I mean? It was like when Vinnie Mac was running things before Triple H took over, and the Judgment Day was supposed to be this next big group, but then they lost everything until Triple H took over and he fixed that.
Mm.
And now, like, they never lose. Like, that's what has to happen. People don't think wins and losses matter. Some people do think it matters. I think it does matter. You can't take things seriously, because if not, well, we're not watching the LWO. We're watching as the Job Squad.
And that's literally, again, to me, based on what I've seen and what LWO has accomplished so far, this was brought in. And I hate that I have to say this, but I have to keep a perspective on things, and I have to look at this from a cultural eye standpoint. LWO was
Hmm.
brought back because, let's be completely honest, right now the LWO was brought back because they want to tap into the Latino market. You have Rey Mysterio as the
Absolutely.
face. They're big merch sellers with their shirts, especially when you juxtapose the LWO logo and the different variations of, like, the Mexican flag colors, the Puerto Rican flag colors, and
Yep.
it makes me upset, the fact that you have a beautiful history behind the original LWO. And I was excited when it came back because, now we're getting lots of Latinos on my television screen. But
Hmm.
they've been reduced
Absolutely.
to the job squad, as you put it. And it makes me really sad, and it makes me really upset. And I was just like, once again, WWE does not care about the actual heritage of Latinos in as wrestlers and talent, and it makes me upset. I could go on a
Yeah,
tangent. I
it's
don't want
definitely
to though. I
interesting.
can go on a tangent.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. It's always kind of felt like that way for me. Like I felt like they've always had these big stars, and every now and then some people are just so transcendent. Like I think the last big Latino star we had was Alberto Del Rio, and then after he lost the title to CM Punk, he essentially became a jobber, which was so weird to me. He left the company. He comes back, wins the United States Championship on his first night back against John Cena, which is a running theme for John Cena to lose the title to a return or to a
Hmm.
debut. And it really didn't mean anything. Like, it was just like, okay. Like, I mean, you have this guy who's clearly over, but I don't know.
And not to go on too much of a tangent, that's why with NXT, I always fear because NXT has awesome Latin talent, both in the men and women's division. You have Dragon Lee, you have Axiom, you have Electra Lopez, Lola, Roxanne Perez, of all people, too. And I'm so worried that when they get to main roster, they will be. It just makes me.
See, but you talk about all of that, but the one that matters to me the most is Roxanne, because Roxanne has gone on interviews where she is a mixed Latina. She is half Mexican, half Puerto Rican, and she loves that about herself. She's very outspoken. She loves the fact that, like, I have both of these Latino cultures in me. And I feel like that is a way, like, if you want to tap into something, then you have your star. She speaks perfect English. She speaks perfect Spanish. She's a great representation for anything in professional wrestling. She is a workhorse. I mean, that she can work,
She
man.
is a
I
prodigy, and I put her in that same category as some of the other young prodigies across all the companies. Her, Billy Starks, Nick Wayne, like all these young kids who this is. I'll even put Soraya in there for a matter of fact. These kids have been doing it since they were like 14, 15, 16, and they already knew this is what they wanted to do.
Well, I'm going to pull an MJF here, and I'm going to bring up the other company, and I just want to knock over here on this brick wall. I think it's hilarious that Tony Khan had Roxanne in his fucking pocket, and he just let her go. Like, he had her in Ring of Honor, and I just think that's hilarious because it's just a great indicator as to what Tony Khan's just not able to do.
That was a weird time because Roxanne lost the title. She and Deanna had such a great match on Impact when it was title versus title.
Mm-hmm.
And even though Roxanne lost, there was that match between her and Deanna was so good. Again, Deanna Purrazzo. She's amazing, and WWE was done to let her go. I'm just gonna say that right now. But
So I guess we're talking about the big dog next, huh?
yeah, well, okay. So again, Street Profits beat LWO with their finisher, which still looks cool. I just hate that it's against LWO. And then the post match beatdown on LWO. So Street Profits and Bobby versus LWO for a little bit. Sure, cool, fine. Again, it's hate crime, but it is what it is. So let's get to the most polarizing character in the right now in wrestling. So we get a recap of LA Knight and Miz's feud that led to their match at Payback. And then we get the actual match itself, LA Knight versus The Miz, part 2. This match was a lot better than their Payback match. I will admit that, to me at least. The same issues that we talked about during their match at Payback still is prevalent in this match too.
Yeah. I mean, this match was all about making LA Knight, and I think that was the whole intention. It was like, let's try everything we can. We need to get this guy over. We trust The Miz. Honestly, the match was fine. What stuck out to me was the promo after.
Absolutely. So LA Knight picks up the victory here, as he should. I guess, I was hoping we would get a trilogy between these two where I still think Miz should have won that Payback match, and then you build up to LA Knight taking the next two. But this promo, you cannot deny that LA Knight's promo skills, for the most part, are phenomenal. I'm a big LA Knight fan, but I will even criticize him when he trips up on his words like he did against Miz a few times leading into Payback.
See, I like that though, because to me it feels real, and I think that's why he's getting over. And I don't think he's getting over like Austin or Rock. I think you mentioned him earlier. He's getting over like Foley. Like, he's just genuinely over with the crowd, and I think the crowd is telling us, like, we don't care if the internet wrestling community hates him. Here at live audiences, we're fans. We love this guy. And it is clear his merchandising sales, the reactions he gets live. Like, listen, I love Dom. Dom and the Judgment Day are my favorite thing in professional wrestling today, but we can all admit that we know they're lowering Dominic's mic so that way we could hear the boos completely drown him out. There's no piped in audio. When LA Knight is out there and he's doing his stuff, that's genuine.
Oh,
That's
for
real.
sure. And this promo was awesome. So
Hmm.
basically, LA Knight literally puts the locker room on notice and tells the audience it's like it doesn't matter whether it's the Ray, whether it's Gunther, whether it's Seth,
Hmm.
and whether it's Roman.
Hmm.
I'm coming for that gold. And everybody best be ready because LA Knight is here and I'm going to have gold at some point. And I was just like, yes. I was like, yes.
I love it. I love it. Side note, if they happen to have LA Knight be the guy that beats Gunther, I don't think that would be the worst thing. As much as I think Chad Gable deserves that championship and professional wrestling deserves means nothing. It's what makes money. And if LA Knight's money right now, that's what you got to do with him.
Right. And, you know, I'm excited. This promo did everything that it needed to. It was great.
But now we go back to another backstage segment.
Yeah, so so we backstage we see Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa watching LA Knight, and this is where things get interesting for me. So Paul Heyman tells Solo it's like we we have a problem. It's like Jimmy's out here running ramshot on SmackDown on his own and not falling in line. And then he kind of tells Solo, and then you kind of doing your own thing. We need to figure out what Roman wants. But Solo ignores that and says, I'm gonna take care of this and it's gonna end tonight. And then Solo proceeds to leave because to me at least, and we could talk about it later because you brought it up. Solo to me, I was like, oh, Solo going rogue. He's just like, I'm just taking care of business, what needs to be done. And then Paul Heyman
Mm,
has a panic attack. Nice detail that we finally changed his phone case. It went from
yeah.
the horrible red case that he's had for so long to something different. But Paul Heyman has a panic attack and says, call Roman Reigns because he's going to talk to Roman to see what he wants. I love the fact that right now Jimmy is, excuse my French because we're far enough into this, but Jimmy is fucking up the Bloodlands blinds right now. Jimmy's actually going rogue at this point, and it's so
Yeah.
fun to watch. But I love this was the perfect amount. We didn't need a long ass segment. This was perfect. Solo's going to take care of business. Paul is freaking out because everything is going off the rails, so to speak. And then we cut into another backstage segment. I don't care what nobody says. While this served no actual purpose, I will never complain with Pretty Deadly on my screen.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm a fan of them. I think they're really good. I like them in the ring as well, besides their character. I just thought there was more backstage than in front of the live
True.
audience.
And I love the fact that Adam Pierce made me laugh. Is like, your shoulder is hurt. Why do you need a wheelchair?
Yeah.
Say what you
Love
will
it.
about Adam Pierce from a theater perspective, and I'm kind of slowly taking this from my theater folks here at the Bi-Conics, so I'm slowly learning. He is the perfect straight man to be paired up with all these crazy characters because he's just out here trying to do his job.
Mm,
But,
yeah. He does a really good job. This is the best version of a general manager we've gotten in a very
oh,
long time. Very. I
absolutely.
can't remember. Maybe William Regal is probably my favorite general manager. This might be the best version of a general manager since Regal.
I loved it. And it's nice to see Pretty Deadly. And while we didn't get a timeline, it seems that the healing process is going good. So hopefully it won't be too long before we see Pretty Deadly back in the ring. And I think we're gonna get Pretty Deadly versus Brawling Brutes as far because
Mm,
they mentioned Ridge Holland. I also appreciated the fact that they softened the blow a little bit because Ridge has been very unlucky. The internet, he had to delete his social medias after the Big E accident, and then he deleted it again after what happened with Pretty Deadly. I'm like, Rich Holland did not deserve all the hate. And even Big E has come out and said that was a freak accident. It like everyone needs to calm down. But
yeah, I agree.
so This is where I have to dock points for SmackDown because once again we only got one women's match. But and I was just like,
Yeah.
we only got one women's match, and we had one women's segment before said match. So before the match, we see, which was very interesting. We saw Dakota and Bailey
Yeah.
talking, and Bailey mentioned she's like, you know what, Io. Literally, everyone's going rogue on SmackDown apparently because quintessentially Bailey says Io impulsively accepting the challenge from Asuka has thrown off my plans. You know, I was in control of when we debuted to her cashing it in. So I'm like, oh, so Bailey, what you're telling me is that you're the one. So Io's success is all thanks to you. I was like, I can slowly see the cracks starting to show once Io comes back.
It's Triple H and Randy Orton Evolution 2.0.
Exactly.
That's what this is. Io's going to get kicked out of the group. It's very clear. But Dakota's kind of
It's weird.
the straight
Dakota
man
is
here.
the
I kind
voice
of
of
like
reason, and
that.
I like it. She's like,
Yeah.
well, I mean, listen, I'm just happy to finally see Dakota speak again.
Yeah. She's a good talker. I don't understand. She's really, really solid. Obviously, we know she can't work right now. She can't like actually perform.
Right.
But I love that she reminds Bailey, like, hey, you have a match with Asuka right now. You should be focused on that.
Instead of what Io's doing right now, or where she's off training for her match against Asuka next week. Again, I love that Dakota is the voice of reason in this. She's like, you should worry about Asuka right now, and we can worry about Io later, because if you don't do something and if you don't beat Asuka here, Io's going to have a tougher time next week. Is essentially what we got. I will say I ding points tonight because we only got one women's match, but I did appreciate that this match went over a commercial break.
Yes, absolutely. I do love that. I will say that I think we talked about it on our last review, that it seems like the women's matches are getting multiple segments. And I think that's great because that means that the people in live in attendance are getting to see lengthy women's matches. And to be quite honest with you, Bailey and Asuka are two of probably like they're in top 10 in terms of performance for women in professional wrestling. So you can't have them. You can't do AJ Styles versus Finn Balor all over again and have this be really fast. That's just not. It's just not going to play well with the crowd. They needed one solid match, and this was absolutely the match of the
hands down. I 100% agree with you. This was my match of the night as well. Listen, anytime you throw Bailey and Asuka together in the ring, I'm immediately sold just because I've been there since their NXT journeys all now.
Oh man, that pass out. That is one of my favorite NXT moments when Bailey just passes out from the chicken wing. I was love like, it.
You still make Bailey look strong even in that loss against Asuka back then because she didn't tap, she didn't do anything, she just passed out.
I'm going to argue this for the rest of my life, and I know being that I'm the Judgment Day guy on TikTok and stuff like that, Bailey will always be mommy to me. I don't care what they call Rhea. Bailey's always going to be mommy.
So the best way I can put it, so somebody who is of the bisexual persuasion and also knows the gay lingo culture too, Rhea is mommy, but Bailey is mother. Like there's a hierarchy right there. So
I don't know. When I look at Bailey, I'm thinking like that's mommy right there. That's mama right there. That's big mama right there. I like that.
And
like, I feel like she's the person you call the old lady. Like that's my old lady right there.
She is the ride or die.
Yup. Yup. 100%.
This match was a lot of fun. And normally I don't like a surprise roll up, but I do appreciate it that it wasn't like, oh, it came out of nowhere because Shotzi's not done with Bailey. She's like, oh, you thought we were done.
Yeah. I love that. We get, let's continue to build Shotzi.
So Shotzi comes out. Bailey's freaking out. She's still terrified, which I appreciate the continuity because Shotzi's out here off her rocker a little bit, which allowed... And what I loved is that there was a delay between the surprise roll up because Asuka's just waiting for her. She's like, oh, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. And then bam, grabs her, rolls her up. 1, 2, 3. Asuka wins. Yes.
2 old school finishes. We have a crucifix pin and a backslide. This is like really good with The Rock opening the show. This feels like 1992.
And
I love
again,
it.
this kind of adds to what we talked about earlier in the review, that once everyone saw that The Rock was here, it's like, okay, what can we do to either pay homage to the old school, and how do we make this better? And again, the crucifix pin and this backslider, I'm just like, oh, this is beautiful. I love it so much.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that afterwards, Shotzi goes in for a dab and Asuka's hesitant and then kind of just slowly does it. I was like, this is the weird pairing I never knew I wanted.
Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love it. But that's my question. So is Asuka babyface now? Or are we just like, do we not know?
It's so weird. Okay, because I asked myself this question, right? So we talked about this last week because we're getting next up before the main event, we get the bumpers of what we're getting next week. So Street Profits versus Santos and Rey, but more importantly, Io versus Asuka for the title. Now,
Yeah.
Damage Control up until this point has been the heels, whoever they go up against. Asuka's Kana character that she now is fully in is also supposed to be heel, but I feel like she's more an in-betweener, I guess, is the best bet. And
Yeah.
it's weird because Shotzi right now, as crazy as she is, she's babyface to me. And so Asuka acknowledging that with the fist bump, I was like, I think I'm going to put Asuka as an in-betweener. But in the reality, I also think between the three of them, I think Io is probably the most faced in Damage Control right now, which is really weird to say.
She's organically over. That's what it is. The fans just love Io. It's always been that way. And the thing is, she's one of those heels. It doesn't matter if she's a heel. People just love her. Like, it's always been this way.
And again, my biggest hope is before they take the title off of Io down the line, I know everyone says that they would love to see Damage Control triple threat. My dream triple threat is just give me all three of the Japanese wrestlers, like Asuka, Io, and whenever Kairi decides to pop in. If you give me that match at any point of my life, you give it time, I will be happy. But this match, I think, was a lot of fun. Hands down, my match of the night. This was the one match that still progressed the storyline. So Asuka gets a win going into Io next week. Normally, I don't like champions not being on shows before their title defenses a week before, but I think this works because Io still is looking strong as she goes into Asuka because she didn't.
Yeah.
The squash matches, if you're champion, sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. So I appreciate that Io wasn't on television because now, honestly, I think Io's going to retain, but it can, to me, they made me believe it can go either way. And that's what I want.
Agreed. Yeah. That's the point, is we don't want to know who's going to win these matches. And sometimes WWE can fault, like that's a big fault of theirs. Triple H has been talking about this since he was a worker, where sometimes the obvious choice is the right choice. And that makes sense in terms of like Roman versus AJ Styles in Saudi Arabia. Like, that's apparently that Roman's going to be his next match November 4th in Saudi Arabia. We clearly know Roman's winning that match. That's an obvious right choice. But I don't want to know that Roman's going to beat The Rock. If that's the story we're getting, I want to believe that The Rock is going to win this match. I want to feel like The Rock versus Cena won. Like, if The Rock wins this match, I want to be genuinely surprised. Like, yes, like The Rock just won this match. That's amazing.
Yeah, this match ruled, and Bayley and Shotzi seems to be continuing because they're not done, which I like. I'm okay with. But again, I'm really looking forward to this women's championship match next week. Please give it time, SmackDown. Please do not do this to them because if you can, SmackDown, do not give me a schmoz to this.
I don't think so. The one thing we know since Triple H has been in charge, he loves his people. There are like Paul Heyman guys and stuff. Like, there's Triple H's like guys. Like, you could tell which ones are his. Like Seth Rollins, Finn Balor. Those are Triple H's guys. Bayley falls under that category. She is a Triple H guy. She will not get. Yeah. He's always loved Bayley. She took care of the brand after the other three left. I believe that Bailey gets a shine out moment. Like, I mean, she'll get to be out there, and she'll get to be a part of the match. I think the match itself like will be lengthy. Um, I think it's definitely going to be one of those things where Bailey will get to showcase, like, her heelish side, as well as what she could do to a match that she's not technically involved in, or things like that. Like, she's so special. She's mommy. That's what I'm saying. She's
Exactly.
mommy. I'm a, Bailey is mommy.
I hope this championship match main events next week. I want this as the main event. I really, really do. I don't know if we will. I want it to main event or be towards the middle of the show. I don't want it to open.
Mhm. Agreed. Agreed. So I guess we're gonna jump into the worst part of SmackDown.
As much as I hated the LWO segment for a variety of reasons because I felt like it's a hate crime, I will say that this main event segment, if you want to call it that, was the low point in terms of just the overall pacing and, results we got of this. So
Just
the Grayson
dreadful.
Waller effect. So I love Grayson Waller as a character and as a wrestler. Again, I will forever and a day say NXT was great, and he earned my respect when I thought he blew his arm out in that ladder match at Stand and Deliver 2 years ago. But I hate if you're gonna have John Cena on. I hate the fact that John Cena didn't even get to talk at all, and I was like, that's a crime. Because Grayson did most of the talking, and then John Cena's like, oh, "Okay, you're not gonna let me talk," so he gets ready to fight Grayson, and then Jimmy Uso's music hits, and he interrupts. Again, still going rogue, gets in John Cena's face, you know, still coming after him for what he said 2 weeks ago because he's still butthurt about the wrong Uso quit. Again, this goes back to what we talked
Yep.
about. It's like Jimmy is running rogue and he's acting like a spoiled child with the tantrum problem.
Yep.
And then Solo Sokoa comes out. It looks like he's gonna Samoan spike Jimmy, which I was rooting for, but then he turns his attention and beats up John Cena. It becomes a 2-on-1. AJ Styles comes out, and then the brawl breaks out, and eventually it ends with John Cena attempting to give not AJ, Jimmy, an attitude adjustment, an AA, and then you hear Paul Heyman yell at Solo, "Go save your brother."
Yeah. Go save
So
Jimmy.
he
Yeah.
does, and we end with Cena and AJ looking at Solo and Jimmy. Grayson Waller did not need to be here for any of this. I was like, why have
He was the Pat McAfee of this segment. He was just in the background.
it was
It's
weird,
weird.
and I was just like, now don't get me wrong. If it was some random interviewer, I would enjoy this. I'm like, cool, I get to see AJ and Cena like 5 feet this way, Solo and Jimmy 5 feet that way with Paul Heyman on the outside. I'm like, cool. But Grayson served no purpose to this whatsoever. It was just to have him there and to not even really set up something, which I think it's going to be Cena and Styles versus Jimmy and Solo, probably at Fastlane, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's fine. Another John Cena match. I'm excited about that, but in general, this segment left me underwhelmed going into this match. I'm hoping they do something a little bit better, because what I saw last night was so convoluted in that finale there, where I truly came out of that thinking, like, who wants to see this match?
you know, yeah, I'm just like, I get it. I mean, I don't get it, but I understand that Fastlane is being treated as now I have to eat my words. Once we get the final card, because that's what I initially thought with Payback. I was like, oh, this is a filler pay-per-view, and then Payback defied my expectations. So I'm hoping still going into Fastlane with these kind of lower expectations. I'm like, feels right now feels like it's again just a filler pay-per-view. I hope I'm wrong again because honestly, the match that is rumored to be on that card that I'm excited for is Gunther versus Chad for that title. And I was just like, give them 15 minutes. Like, I'm fine whoever wins this match. I know people want Chad to win, and I want Chad to win. I think Chad should win because then push Gunther into the main event scene at some point. But that match is gonna
Yeah,
rule if you give it time. Please give it. But right now,
yeah.
I'm not excited for supposedly this tag team match that we're gonna get at Fastlane because this did not help the story build. This did not progress any character development. And my biggest fear is this is literally AJ Cena win LOL type of vibes. I'm like, oh no.
I don't think that's gonna happen. I think Solo gets this win. I think Solo's being built
Mhm.
as super strong. But I guess we'll do when we get to that point. We'll do our like
Oh
predictions and
yes. And
stuff. Things might change. More information comes, and things might change in our minds. We might evolve our
I
thinking.
mean, WWE has 3 weeks until Fastlane to change our minds, and I was like, all right, let's start building this card, you guys. Because,
Mm.
and again, yeah, go ahead.
But if the rumors are true that it's Cena versus Solo at WrestleMania, that's what they're aiming towards. Then maybe you're right. Maybe Cena does need to win this match because what's the point of having Solo go to WrestleMania against John Cena if John Cena's just doing nothing but
Hmm.
taking L's?
But it'll be interesting
So
to see because we have John Cena until the end of October, so we'll see what happens with all that, and we'll just have to wait and see. So we have come to the end of this episode of SmackDown. So the last thing we have to do is we need to give it a rating. So we here at Friday Night Faction have decided we're going to borrow the empanada scale. So that's what we're going. We're go.
nice.
So I just want you to know the empanada scale has gone from just Friday Night SmackDown reviews, and the other hosts have decided they love it better than what we've been doing so far, and they are interchanging it with the two rating systems we have. But we're going to get your
Nice.
two Latinos here. We're going to use the empanada scale.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this a three. I'm gonna give this a three empanadas. I felt like The Rock should have brought it up, but I felt like the ending was so anticlimactic. The LWO segment was so like poor. I felt like that there's a lot of great things. The rest of SmackDown was phenomenal. I loved all of it, even the oversaturation of backstage segments. But for me, the live audience got to see a pretty bad segment with LWO and the Street Profits and Bobby, and they got to see a pretty bad segment with Grayson Waller, and that's why I have to give it three empanadas. If I could just I don't want to give the star of the night to The Rock because like obviously he is the
Hmm.
star of everything. But if I think I'm going to shock you with this. I'm going to say my star of the night was Austin Theory. I think he held his own with The Rock, and I think that's something that he hasn't been able to do. And that to me speaks to the volume. Like, I don't want to take credit away from Austin because I called him the star of the night, but I want to say it just shows you how important to professional wrestling The Rock is because Cena had months to build Austin Theory, and Cena always came out as like the better guy. The Rock did one segment for 9 minutes with Austin Theory, and Austin Theory came out looking way better than he did the entire segment with
Hmm.
John Cena.
Absolutely agree. John Cena is good to bring in when you're trying to test these wrestlers against their promo skills. Because think about it. John Cena has unironically always been, every time he comes back and engages in a promo battle against somebody, I was like, the metaphorical shovel comes out because and I use
Mm,
buried loosely here, but he took the shovel and he whacked Roman Reigns across the head with it when they had their feud. He did the same thing when he called out The Rock writing his stuff on his wrist when they were feuding. He did the same thing to Austin Theory in one promo before the WrestleMania match, but
yeah, but that
yeah.
was the one promo that he caught The Rock, and obviously The Rock got angry and he threatened to kick his ass in front of the audience. Like, you strip this down, I'm still a 6'5", 275-pound Samoan who could beat your ass. And I was like, that's fine. But for the rest of it, mira, for all my gente out there, The Rock se lo comió. So it's not even that like there was not The Rock never lost one single promo. It's like CM Punk and MJF. Like you can try to convince me MJF won one of those promos. I'm
No.
telling you he didn't. Like,
MJF is good by himself, but with Punk, and then I will even say it's Mojo ate him alive too.
yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Samoa Joe barely talked. That's what's so special about him. But we'll talk about Samoa Joe another day
Yes.
because he's just otherworldly,
So
special
I
talent.
agree with you. I'm gonna give this 3 empanadas out of 5. For the same reasons as you, I was sad at the LWO segment that we got. Um, I agree with you. Star is Austin Theory. I didn't have too much of an issue with all the, saturation of the backstage stuff. What brought it down to a 3 for me, though, is just the placement of where The Rock was. I get you want to start the show off hot, but I feel like it kind of trickled down to everything else that we got trying their best to try to either match it or at least do better than what they originally were going to plan. And for some, it did okay. Some was not the best. But
I think Triple H is one of those guys that believes his mind. He believes that he's right and everybody else is wrong. And I know that that's like all of us. We all do that. But somewhere you can't convince me otherwise. That somewhere he doesn't believe that John Cena and The Rock are the same level in terms of
mhm,
popularity. And I just that's not true. Like he's had John Cena open shows to surprise, and it hasn't
mm-mm,
ruined the rest of the show. The Rock is not John Cena. He is like The Rock is bigger. There's only one person in the history of professional wrestling that could get a bigger reaction than The Rock, and that guy is doing his own Broken
mhm,
Skull sessions.
absolutely.
That's it. Like those are the two top guys ever. Like you can't bring The Rock out to start the show. I just don't agree with it. Even when they brought him back as the host of
Mhm,
WrestleMania, remember? That was the main event. That was a closing segment. He cut the promo. He sent the crowd home happy. It was like, "Oh my god, we got to see The Rock like at the end." Like if you give us that entire show and you start with the Grayson Waller effect and you end it with The Rock, I think it's more than 1.8 million people watching that video.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But my friend, thank you so much for being on this review with me again. Once again, I love it. I've already yelled at the professor. I'm like, how dare you be a theater professor and not review SmackDown? But it,
Yeah.
it happens. But hopefully he'll be back next week. But that is going to be it for us for the Friday Night Faction review. If you like our long form reviews that we do, make sure to check out the other long form reviews, both of our weekly TV recaps as well as the pay per views here on the Bi-Conics YouTube wrestling channel. You can follow us all over the social medias at BC WrestlePod. And you can check us out where all podcasts can be found, where we basically do this, but we take it on a grander scale and it's more unhinged. It's great.
Mhm.
And make sure that you tune in the next couple of weeks because if you hadn't noticed, Luis is not our only new member. We have expanded ourselves to now officially a team of 9 people. So you're about to see all
Nice.
these new faces be popping up. It's going to be a great time. But until the next Friday Night Faction review, this has been Mikey and Luis for the Friday Night Faction reviews. And until next time, take care of yourself and see you laters.
Nos vemos.